This afternoon, we have a very, very special guest, a man with an illustrious playing career, having played at the highest level in Japan, Brazil, Portugal, and right here in Australia, where he was league and national champion with Pascoe Vale. On top of that, a 7-year career on the international stage with the Futsalroos, where he now has the privilege of managing both the men's and women's side. I would like to welcome Miles Downie. Good afternoon, Miles. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Ethan. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here, to have somebody who is so passionate about the game like we are as well, and someone who is so committed to pushing futsal forward in this country. And I think that kind of leads in well to my first question of what has been the biggest challenge over your tenure as manager of the Futsalroos in pushing forward futsal in this country?
Biggest challenge? That's a very good question. There has been a number. Um, I think we do have a number of challenges. One of them is around the amount of time we get to spend together and budget allocation. Um, as a national team, we always want more activity, always want to be able to see more players, want to be able to have more camps, but we're always limited to finite resources. So then it's deciding on the best way to spend them. I think there's some other challenges more broadly around nationally, making sure that we have a national competition that makes it easier for players to showcase their talents and be identified. So that's also a challenge that we face.
And you mentioned a lot about having very little time together as a squad. When
Mm.
it comes to the tactical innovation that you want to implement, how do you go about, I guess, getting those ideas across to your players, understanding you have a finite window, and how important has that made selection as well of the Futsalroo squads?
Absolutely, that's a massive challenge. The biggest difference when you're working with a national team, and I believe this is the case in football or futsal, is that there's like you cannot waste a session, and that's pretty standard in high performance sport. But you can't waste a minute, so you're always trying to think, okay, how can we maximize the time we have? Tactically, things can be we can sort of accelerate the learning process through video, but once again, that's often better when people are together. And we also know that when people are sort of overwhelmed with information, they don't perform at their best. So there's a juggling act that's required for that. What does that mean for selection? Well, it means that players that have certain levels of understanding or exposure to ideas are at a massive advantage when it comes to selection. There's no doubt about that.
And you mentioned players that are open to a lot of ideas and a high level of understanding. Aside from the intellectual side of the game, what are the physical and technical attributes that you look for when selecting players for the national team?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a physical perspective, um, players need to have a large aerobic capacity in order to get through volume of work required. If players are rapid and explosive, that gives them a huge advantage. So um, yeah, we have and players that have both of those qualities can easily become workers in the team. So when you look at the likes of a Scott Rogan or a Tyler Garner, or a Dominic Cox or a Jordan Guerrero, not only are they sort of rapid athletes, they've also got big engines, so they can get through a large amount of work. So those sorts of attributes are key, particularly for our workers. When we look at our pivots or our targets, obviously the physical presence they have um, is key as well. Being Australian, I think we are very good physically, and we need to play to our strengths. And the modern game um, has become incredibly physical, and we need to. That sort of plays into our hands, I feel, so enables us to probably compete above our level. Um, so yeah, so certainly looking for strong pivots. Once again, they need a good aerobic capacity, and being explosive is also a big advantage for them. The fixos, they often get through a large amount of work, so having a good engine, being rapid is also key. So um, that on the physical side. The other, I guess the last thing on the physical side is around their agility. So players with good lateral movement are worth worth gold, and you can see players that can operate really well laterally. That makes them incredibly hard to beat, but also means they can go left or right in attack. Technically, um, yeah, the technicians, the better. We want players that are able to use both sides of their body. That's essential. Yeah, you don't really get away with carrying the ball on the wrong side of the body at international level. Um, they want good finishes from a yeah. I guess tactically there's a lot there as well, and psychologically you need players who compete and who are comfortable. Well, not I don't suppose comfortable, but can still access all their abilities when things aren't going their way. And that's really essential. So we're in situations where we go a goal down or we're losing or we've lost a couple of matches, they still need to be able to bring their best or even step up. And that's something that's essential at an international level.
The psychological side of the game is something that is very interesting and has come more to the fore in recent times. How do you go about instilling that resilience in a side that when you go a goal down or if things aren't going your way and you have to absorb pressure, it's not just getting back into the game, but staying into it as well? How do you ensure that your side doesn't lose their way and stays on the course?
Yeah, I think any players that have sort of worked with me um will probably attest to the fact that it's something that I talk about constantly. Um, pre-games, half times, yeah, post games. The idea of sort of yeah, writing our own narrative. Now, obviously, there's you can't control everything in a futsal game. So what you need to be able to do is respond to the circumstances you're in the best way possible. Now, if you can't emotionally regulate yourself, then that sort of yeah limits your ability to do that. So being able to sort of regulate your emotions is key to decide the state that you want to be in to perform. Um, yeah, so having the players dictate what happens next or decide how they're going to respond to a circumstance is really important to me, and it's something that I really value. And I tell the players, look, and I look to them and sort of say at half time, I look in their eyes and I see who can be present, who can't be present, and I know, and that probably determines a lot of the minutes that happen in the second half, depending on okay who can actually be present and deal with what's in front of them.
Staying present is so important, and it's clearly something that you were able to be conscious of during your playing days. On top of that, what are the other things from your playing days that you've taken over into your role as a coach now?
Yeah, interesting. I think there's probably a fair bit, but I'm constantly learning. I don't yeah, I don't think I sort of think back at how I was as a player and I think, man, if I'd have known what I know now, I would have been a significantly better player. Yeah, and I think my probably the main thing that I've brought over is my yeah, my desire to do well and continue to learn. And I don't think yeah, there isn't a training session that happens, and this is the same when I was a player where I'm not reflecting on it going, oh man, I should have done this, or next time I want to do that, or yeah, or I should have spoken to the player in a different way, or I should have got that message across, or I could have been clearer here. And that's something as a player that was I constantly did. But yeah, like you're constantly sort of building on what's before. And I think yeah, I think there's yeah, that's something that I continually sort of take through yeah, through my coaching.
And you
Yeah,
mentioned
just constantly
information.
progressing.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry. You mentioned information as something that's really, really important and that
Mm,
education, how to play futsal.
yeah.
Through your role as one of the leading coaches, not only in the nation, but somebody who has that passion for the game and is actively involved in many coaching courses across New South Wales and across the nation as well, is education one of your pillars for success when it comes to the Futsalroos?
Look, I think education's essential. I think we're in a country where people don't watch futsal at the highest level constantly. We don't. We're in a nation that doesn't have a language around futsal that's universally utilized, um, and so there's so much that other nations, players in other nations might pick up almost automatically. And this is the same in football. That we have to learn, we have to teach, and we need to be explicit about the learning of it. Um, I think there's often you sort of look around and there's a certain logic to the game, and you look at a game, and there's people who might be playing 5v5 on indoor pitch, but they're not necessarily playing futsal, right? There's certain behaviours that are inherent to the game that aren't being done. So I think it's education is crucial. I think we need to educate our coaches. We need to educate our players. We're really lucky at the moment. We're running a level one course in Sydney, and we've got a number of national team players, men and women, on that course. And um, other courses that I've run, national team players have been on the course, and as a consequence of them being on the course, they've become better players, and it's clear because they just have a deeper understanding of what they're actually trying to do on the pitch. So I think, yeah, I feel like yeah, education is key for our development.
You mentioned as well that one of your visions is to create something that's a lot more sustainable within the structure of futsal in Australia too. Education's a very important part of that, but it's got to lead somewhere. And I just want to know, where do you see the Futsalroos in the next 5 to 10 years? What's your vision long term for the setup?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the futsal rules, we can't escape, I guess, the broader context of futsal in Australia, um, because what will enable the key enablers for the national team are actually what goes on here um, domestically and internationally. So we know when our national team was incredibly successful, we had players that either were playing or had played professionally overseas, and that's a massive boost having a few players with a that higher level of understanding and I guess competing at the highest level consistently. So that's key. A national league is also key to have players playing yeah consistently in quality games. Now, one thing that's immensely pleasing is what's going on in Victoria with the amount of futsal that's being played on an international sized pitch, stop clock, and it just in the time that that's sort of shifted, and it's been a like a big adaptation, I'm sure a massive investment in order to make that happen. But you can see the quality in the players has increased dramatically. And not just talking about the top few, but yeah, but across the board, there's been a significant increase in the quality. I think there's so much room to move still um, in that space, but yeah, but that's been a massive step forward. As far as my vision goes for the national team, of course, we want to be qualifying for World Cups um, and competing. And I feel like we've got we've got a group now that can compete with some of the best sides or with the best sides in Asia. And I think more broadly, we could compete with a number of sort of very good sides internationally as well. So, um, yeah, so I think we need to continue to progress. We need more players coming through. Um, there's some, there's a few young players that are developing really nicely. So, um, yeah, hopefully we can get them more exposure.
With the young players getting more exposure, there's of course a World Cup coming up in 2028. Do you view
Mm.
these next international windows not only as a way to get them exposure, but also to really test the competitive nature of this core that you've built over time?
Yeah, I think it's always a balancing act, right? Because um, you want to perform to the best of your ability. You're always trying to put a team out that's going to perform, and you also need to be thinking for the step ahead for the next tournament or the next phase. Um, we've got some young boys. We had a tournament we went to um, where we went to Thailand and played an intercontinental, and that was a really good opportunity to expose some young boys. I feel like giving them that exposure at a young age, knowing that okay, these are some players who can make like some sort of be core members of the team going forward, but perhaps at the time thinking, oh, okay, there's probably other players that are stronger right now. So that balance is always key. Then when it comes to major tournaments, then you're sort of back to thinking, okay, what do we need? Do we need results or do we need to focus on the future? So there's yeah, it's always a balancing act.
Exposure is one thing that you've mentioned a lot when it comes to both enhancing the level of futsal players available for selection for the national team and able
Mm.
to blood youngsters as well. Do you think it's one of the big barriers that's preventing the Futsalroos from competing with some really, really storied futsal nations like Brazil, like Portugal, or even closer to home like Iran and Japan? That exposure at the top level?
Oh, unquestionably. And one of the main issues that we've got is that whenever I take a team away, the exposure is limited to short period of time. But those players that go away, they come back at a different level. And so then there becomes a gap between those who have gone and those who haven't. And so it's a big challenge to those who haven't gone away to then get themselves up to that level. Just because, well, we know training versus a game, we know from learning, in order to learn something in training, it takes around 40 times longer to learn something in training than in match play. Because of the significance of match play or a game, yeah, what happens has real significance to the players, and so they learn so much faster. Now that's training versus a game in a normal scenario based on research. When you go to an international level, the significance goes through the roof. There's so much focus on the match, and I guess details are scrutinized both by the coaching staff, their teammates, but also themselves. And I think our players, yeah, reflect a lot on their performances. So yes, so yeah, that exposure just accelerates their development rapidly. And I think whether it's with the national team or playing with a club side at the highest level, um, that also really breeds um, a competitive nature that's essential because players who are exposed to that level, they understand what's at stake. They understand when they're defending a corner. Okay, if I get to the ball first, I keep my dream alive. If the other player gets the ball first, they take my dream away. Like it's like that's they're the margins, and that's what's actually at stake. And likewise when attacking. So details become really important. Learning gets accelerated. Um, yeah, so it's just so powerful that exposure for young players, regardless of age, right?
And if I guess we want to take this away from the international stage and return to home, return to Australian shores,
Mhm.
that ability to learn and that ability to gain that exposure, do you see that as one of the, I suppose, one of the big barriers in futsal in Australia at the moment when it comes to preparing the next generation for the national side?
Unquestionably. I think when I look at, yeah, I mean, there's players that are phenomenally technically gifted. They're physically superb, but they need to learn and understand the game. They need to understand what's in front of them and um, why they're performing the actions that they're performing. So it becomes crucial. If a player's left to their own devices, the time that it takes to learn those things is is long, right? Um, and this is the whole idea of a coach or a good coach is I think of them as a catalyst. So the catalyst is like an enzyme in the body. An enzyme will accelerate a chemical process within the body. A coach should accelerate the developmental process of the player. So I think good coaches enable players, yeah, to identify what's actually important in their environment. So there's lots of things to pay attention to. What are the key things that they need to pay attention to, and what do they mean? So, and what are they actually trying to achieve in each moment? So I think those good coaching can really improve their player quality. Information in the past in on futsal has traditionally been in Spanish and Portuguese, limited access. So a lot of English-speaking Western countries haven't had access to that stuff. So development's been slower. A lot of the nations that fall outside of um, those languages, or sort of having those languages, have done well because they've brought in foreign coaches. They've then implemented these ideas and it's become sort of common practice throughout the nation. And then I suppose you got nations like Iran who are doing incredibly well, with but like with a massive playing population, and so that's yeah incredibly helpful for them. Like if you've got 12 million players, it's probably not that difficult to produce some good ones.
That's another barrier as well for Australia too. The fact that it's such a vast nation, however, the population is so small. When it comes to the available amount of futsal players, you've mentioned a lot about the want for a nationalized league.
Mm.
It's a very big logistical challenge. How would something like that come to fruition? How would something like that go from just a theory in order to being something that's a real thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think short term, the easiest step is to make a conference-based competition with a national final series. Um, that's a no-brainer for me. I think I think also a need. There's also a need to look at the commercial opportunities that exist for the game. I don't think we've been fully open or sort of worked together to see what's actually possible there. And I think one of the challenges is that things need to be under Football Australia to maintain our links with AFC and FIFA. But then yeah, or maybe they don't worry there's a professional leagues sort of thing, but it does need to be linked to Football Australia and AFC and FIFA. So we're all connected. But that is a an opportunity, I think, because we've got the issue with anyone who goes to see futsal live falls in love with it, right? And I honestly believe like this, the tension and drama is unbelievable, and there's no sport in the world that can rival that, right? I think it's totally extraordinary. So and when you look at a lot of people sort of think of futsal and they think it's not that big, but when you look at the number of national teams that participate in futsal in men's and women, so when you look at sportsmen and women, like it's the third highest um, sport participated by nations. So you've got football, basketball, and then futsal. So it's the third highest in the world. So it's not a small sport. We just sort of have that mindset here.
I can completely attest to that as well. Every time you go to a futsal game, and for me, I guess more so on the commentary side of it, every time you commentate on it, you end up just getting so immersed in what goes on. It's
Mm,
so encapsulating because every moment and every game has something and it throws up something that is completely brilliant. And I am completely with you that we should want to broadcast that more often. And
yeah.
I think, I guess on the more so in the Asian sphere as well as the international one, do you see Australia being able to take a leading role in doing that and really pushing the game forward?
I think we've certainly got the potential to. And I think like if we did things right, I have no doubt um that people would want to see our games within Asia, like as a whole. Um, I have no doubt about that. I mean the game in Indonesia that we played recently is a perfect example. Like there's yeah, people are mad, absolutely mad for football. And when in Indonesia, like one of our closest neighbors, they've got 200 or 300 million people who are football mad and futsal mad, and they completely love it. Like that is a huge audience that we don't tap into at all. Yeah.
And I guess with the World Cup as well coming up in 2028, do you think it's more likely that we will see the Futsalroos, I guess, take a leading stance in that and sort of tap into those markets by playing international friendlies like we did in Jakarta recently? We could play that somewhere like Thailand. Let's say if we want to keep it small scale and stay in Asia, somewhere like Japan, instead of globally, with that ultimately being the goal.
Yeah, I think there's real I guess financial sense for us to be operating in Southeast Asia. The cost of us playing tournaments in Thailand or Indonesia, it's like significantly less than us going to Europe or even even to the west of Asia. So yeah, so things are a lot more affordable. We're always trying to maximize our budget, and so long as we're still gaining an advantage and learning and developing from playing within the region, we'll continue to do that. I think ultimately our development would be faster if we went to South America or to Europe. There's no two ways about that. But I've got to be realistic with the budget that I get each or that we get each year. And and try to maximize the opportunities with that.
And it's not just for the men's as well, because the women's side of the Futsalroos has been one of rapid growth. They qualified for the Futsal Asian Cup this year as well.
Mm.
It's a side who, in a very, very short span of time, have really exploded onto the international stage. So do you see friendlies like the ones that were played in Jakarta being something that's possible for the women's as well?
Oh, absolutely. I think Australia is always a big draw card, particularly within Asia. Um, we've got very good player quality here, and I think those opportunities will come, and I think we're really lucky because we're in a position probably 12 months ago where we only just sort of created women's side for the first time, and it was created just for the qualifiers. So we're going to run a camp money, like we put aside, we took money out of the Futsalroos budget deliberately to say, all right, it won't cost Football Australia anything extra. We're going to use money from the men's program and put it in the women's program so that we can run a training camp. So you'll only have to put money forward for the qualifiers, put it to a FA. Thank goodness. Yeah, we had some fantastic support from internally that helped it happen, both from internally and the board. And so we managed to get a team for the qualifiers. There wasn't any budget set aside for us making the Asian Cup, and so then, but they were nice. But then we got the money to go to the Asian Cup. So I think there's the performance of the girls, the appreciation of team starting was fantastic, and that's now being supported. Um, Budgets aren't finalised for next year, but the women's national team is a key part of the budget that we've put forward, and yeah, and I think and there's a lot of supporters in house, so I really think it's a massive opportunity for the women, and not only well, we didn't qualify for the World Cup, and we didn't perform the way that we wanted to at the Asian Cup. But off the back of that, we've got Zoe Spadano is playing in Italy, and I talked about this with the men, but Zoe Spadano's gone to play in Italy. We've got um, we've got Sarah Moore being offered a spot in Portugal with Sporting Lisbon, and they've offered to pay for a PhD there. I think for the following year. We've had other players go and train with clubs in Indonesia. Another player getting offered an opportunity to play in Japan. So it's it's really terrific sort of seeing the growth and what some of the girls are willing to do to give themselves a chance to play for the national team. We've got players from the A League who are ringing up saying, "What do I need to do to get in?" And I think there's some real quality. A number like we've had Nikita Vazari came away with us, and unfortunately was injured for the Asian Cup, and she was phenomenal, like unbelievable talent at 17, and then she's since been called up to the under 20s uh, football side, playing in the A League. We had Amy Barker that we took to the Asian Cup. And she's since made her A-League debut the other night. So yeah, really terrific opportunities being created for them.
And it's not just that pathway, I guess, to play professional football as well, but how brilliant has it been to see that there is now a structure from bottom to top in order from club level all the way through to the national level for women and for young girls who want to play futsal.
Oh, absolutely. It's just so valuable. And I think there's and like the number one thing everybody wants is just um a dream, right? A dream that they can see. And I think girls girls having the opportunity to grow up thinking, wow, I could do this, or oh, that girl plays at my club and she played for the national team. I can do that. Like I'm a good player in my team. I could play to the same level as I could play at that international level in front of thousands of people. So I think that's that's probably the number one thing that futsal and football offers us, right? Or sport in general offers people a dream, right? And then like once that spark's lit, then man, like people will just do anything to make it happen. And that's the thing. Like it's completely irrational. Oh, yep, yeah, move to another country. Zoe, yep, go to Italy, play professionally over there. It's crazy. And net off she goes and does it. That's oh yeah, I think that's wonderful. Gives us opportunities and then becomes a vehicle for our own development as human beings. I think it's awesome.
There's so many brilliant stories that come off the back of it as well. And I guess the importance of that dream is one of the biggest things that draws people to football and to futsal as well. And it's the reason why we love this game so much. And you were once somebody who had that dream as a player. You realized
Yeah.
that, and now you get to see it out as a coach as well. What is the dream and what is the legacy that you want to leave behind for futsal in this country?
Yeah, I want yeah, I want futsal to be something really special. Um and I want it to be massive, and I want people to be able to utilize this game to fulfill their dreams and make connections and yeah, live amazing lives, right? But I guess more specifically, I would love futsal to transform the knowledge of both futsal and football in Australia and become, I guess, one of the key aspects that's enabled futsal and football to become massive and for us to be successful on a global stage. And I say futsal for futsal and football because the level of detail um, in futsal is far greater than what you'll find in football often. And because in a 1v1 in futsal, if you're successful, you're 1-on-1 with the keeper. If you're unsuccessful, the opposition's 1-on-1 with the keeper. So the details become crucial. Okay, what are we doing here? How am I going to be most effective in this in each moment? And so yeah, so everything gets scrutinized. And I think that detail, how to create space off the ball, how to get the better opponent off the ball, how to um these things are all details that are just completely lost in football because there's so much to see or people get distracted by so much. So I think futsal um, can really revolutionize the game. I was recently um, at Fiorentina at their training ground, and they sort of presented to us and said 5 years ago they threw out their methodology and based their whole methodology on futsal coaching methodology. Um, they said they don't play futsal, but they just took the learning methodology that they took starting at the level of the individual, working in twos, working in threes, what players do at an individual level on the ball and off the ball in attack, what they do defending the first defender, or defending the ball carrier, defending off the ball. And so they've gone down that route and had massive success. And obviously there's loads of countries around the world that are sort of that make use of that sort of methodology, and it just increases everyone's chances of success.
I guess one more thing as well. I want to focus on you strictly here. When
Mm.
it comes to the next generation of players, of coaches who are all futsal mad in this country, what firstly do you want to leave behind for them? And then secondly, what do you want them to take from your work?
Yeah, I think that's a big question, and I guess I want the next generation of coaches in Australia to be top class, and I want them to be at a much higher level than me. And I think, I mean, I think Isaac Newton said it where he was able to do what he did because he stood on the shoulders of giants. And yeah, like what I do is because of the people that have influenced me. Um, and they're many and varied, and constantly new people are influencing me. But I also want the next generation to take all of that and then build on that. And I really don't want there to be just a handful of top coaches in the country. I want it to be, I would love at every level there to be coaches of a higher standard than me. So that's why we've got our level one courses, the information that I have on trying to get into we've rewritten the courses. Any information I've trying to push it down so that it's accessible for everyone. The new level one course is a mixture of in-person and online content. The online content people have for life, like on the Football Australia Learning Centre, so they get it and it's accessible. There's a lot of detail, a lot of information, and I don't think people are able to sort of take that on straight away, but they can reference that at any time once they do the course. And those who have already done that course, those same modules are available for CPD points for continuing education. They're also available for football coaches so they can learn detail. And so just building that knowledge base out and particularly working with players. And in the current national team, the players that we've got, and it's a lot with the way that I coach. It's not deliberate, but the players in national team will be excellent coaches, like top quality coaches. And we've already got some um, excellent coaches there, or people that are doing a fantastic job. Like Jamie Dibbs coaching is an assistant in the Women's A League, so already. But there's like Ethan DeMello will be a phenomenal coach. There's so many players. Scott Rogan will be an excellent coach. Tyler Garner will be unbelievable. So there's so many people there that will be just phenomenal. Grant Lynch, Wade Juvenile, they they understand the game. They understand what they're doing. They can explain what they're doing. And I think, yeah, they're going to be top coach, and they can create environments that are positive and make people love the game. And I think, yeah, I want to leave a legacy like when I'm finally done, which hopefully be in a long time, where there are loads of coaches of a high quality, not just one or two, and of course there'll be a handful that can go on to be top class because there's no as a coach you don't need to be born with anything. You just need to want to do it and seek out the information. Okay, how do I do this? And then yeah, how can I teach that? Okay, how do people learn? Oh, that's good. Okay, how do I create sessions to compete? Okay, how do we do that? How do I create an environment where they're going to perform like this? How do I put players in a state? How do I get information from my head to their head? How do I, yeah. So all these things are learnable. So
You mentioned that these players understand the game to a really, really great degree. And it's obviously a really desirable attribute for players at the national stage. Are there any other really key attributes or really key traits that you look for in players when you're going to select the national team?
yeah, so I'm just going to go back to that first point before I answer the first one. When I say they know what they do, they know what we do. So when I say they know the game, there's so much more for them to learn. And when we come together, there's a finite amount of information that I can get into them and expose them to. But what we do, they know, and they learn really well. So yes, there's loads of learning for them to go. What else? Well, at an international level, there's obviously physical qualities I talked about earlier. Are key. If a player can operate, um, can do the fundamentals at an individual level, and I talked about on the ball, I win possession on the ball, off the ball, and defending the ball carrier and being off the ball. So they can operate at an individual level and work well and understand what's happening in twos. They can understand the relationship between them and their teammates, the opponents, and the available space in twos, and maybe threes. Okay. That's then they have a level of understanding that they can play at an international level. if if they have other fantastic qualities and don't understand fundamentals, particularly the level of the individual, then they're going to struggle to play at national level, regardless of how talented they appear. So that's really fundamental. There's physical qualities that I talked about. Psychologically, um, they need, as I said earlier, they need to be able to deal with adversity because in futsal is like I'm really surprised that people, even once they reach sort of a higher level, it's like they're surprised that the other team get momentum and may score a goal or two, or that they're down in a game. Like it is the most normal thing for you to like for that to happen. Like you're either up or you're down, right? That's the game, or it's even. Like there's only three options, and so things will go your way and things won't go your way. And when a team has momentum, you have to minimize what they're able to do when they have that momentum. And when you have momentum, you've got to maximize what happens. And so being in that situation where the other position have momentum, the crowd's against you, people things you make an error, you still need to be able to create a state within you where you can access your best. And I often find that players that have competed at a high level, and that could be futsal or football, are the ones that are able to manage their state the best. And that's because they've just been exposed to those challenging situations over and over and over, and the demands have been high on them. So often, often it's the players who have played at a high level.
And just one final question. With the Futsal Asian Cup coming up next year,
Mhm.
what will be the goals that you set for this side, and what will a successful tournament look like for Australia?
If we do what we're capable of, um, and do the things that lead to success, we can get out of this group. Even though, and fully aware of, we've got two teams that lost in the semi-finals of the last Asian Cup on penalties in our group, and Japan, who won it the previous time. So we've got like Tajikistan lost after 3-3 in penalties to Thailand, and Uzbekistan were 5-all against Iran before losing on penalties. And they were both top class sides the last time out. Having said that, we played Uzbekistan in the group stage, and we had a moment after half time where we didn't perform. But outside of that, I think we had a very good match, um, and we went down 3-2. But I think we performed quite well, and I don't think Uzbekistan's style is massively threatening to us. I don't fear Japan either in the way they played. Well, are they good? Absolutely. I'm not no two ways about that. Prior to the last Asian Cup, we had a 3-3 draw with them in a friendly match, and like they scored the last kick of the game to equalise. So I believe we've got the our style of play will match them well, despite their qualities.
Well, Miles, thank you so much for your time. We are wishing you nothing but the best next year at the Futsal Asian Cup, and it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you today.
Thank you very much. Been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.